I'm very happy to be up here today at Alcantara Vineyards with our guest. Go ahead and introduce yourself if you could.
Sure, I'm Ron Brumley. I'm the winemaker, manage the vineyards, and try to manage the property.
And it is quite a property here. I mean, I've driven to Cottonwood several times, and I've been on that road. You know, it's an unassuming road because you don't necessarily know that the Verde River is right here unless you've been down there. But as soon as you kind of crest over and start coming onto your guys' property specifically, it is absolutely stunning. Sweeping vineyards. You can hear the cicadas rolling right now. Saw a little cat running around. Talk to me a little bit about the property and what you have going on here.
We have a lot. We are hidden. We're off the beaten path. When you come up on I-17, you make a left or go west on 260, which is towards Cottonwood. We're a couple miles off of 260, and like you said, when you roll over the hill, you see all the vineyards. You're like, who did this? Mm-hmm. Where did this come from? Why was it planted? All that kind of thing. We have 87 acres.
Wow.
We have a lot of acreage here. The river, the Verde and the Oak Creek both meet on our property, and that's the confluence. And you see the wine here. We named the wine.
Is it the red one?
The red here is named Confluence. And that's a Grenache Mourvedre blend, so blending grapes. So
I like that.
The Verde and the Oak Creek water is what everybody drinks down in Phoenix. So that goes down and hits the Salt River, and then that's what goes into the canal systems and is filtered and so forth. So that's all your surface water. You're getting it from up here. It goes through our property. We have 5 acres on the other side of that property. The north side of the north half of the property is vineyards, as you can see. We have 15 acres here. We have 16 different varietals, so it's not an easy task.
No,
we could go over that later. But what we have is we have 2 wine processing buildings. We have a tasting room, which is an old house, and then we have a lot of recreational opportunity. Mm-hmm. We've got horses, horseback rides. We do electric bike tours around the property now.
Really?
We have kayaks, so we take you up the river, drop you in, and then you float down. You get out on our beach. We keep a beach groomed down there. There's a lot of things going on here. We have food. We have a restaurant. We do pizzas and sandwiches and all that kind of stuff. Charcuterie boards. We do tastings by the bottle. We have a wine club. We could talk for hours.
Yeah, and we might end up doing that. But I gotta say, I was familiar with you guys. You were on my radar and whatnot. I was following you on social media, and it was probably 2-3 weeks ago maybe that you guys posted a video of someone kayaking down the river.
Yeah.
And that sealed the deal for me. I'm like, we got to set up a podcast there as soon as possible because, there's plenty of wineries in Arizona, and I don't want this to sound like I'm speaking bad about anyone else's property,
sure.
But when you're on the river and you have those type of activities, like you said, it's so much more than just a vineyard and a winery. How did this whole property begin?
So Barbara and Bob Predmore, 17 years ago, they found the property. They lived here, and they saw Tuscany. So if you kind of look out over into the hills, you're going to see that rolling hills. You're going to see that desert, the scrub brush, and what you get from that is the opportunity to maybe play into that role with the grapes.
Sure.
So we have a lot of Tuscan, grapes. We've got Sangiovese here. We've got Charbono here. We've got Merlot. We can blend those grapes. We can do single varietals, and that's what they saw. So they put a spade in the ground and they dug it up and they did some planting, and they found that the grapes grew. And going back to the 16 different varietals, I wish I only had 2 or 3, because having 2 or 3 kids might be manageable, but I have 16 kids.
Yeah.
And to make all 16 of those great is a challenge. Most people aren't up for doing that.
Sure.
You have 1 or 2 kids and you're done. Okay, we got this. College comes along, got that big payment. So what we have is we have small batch, small lots, a barrel or two. We have wine club. The wine club members get those barrel or 2. Sometimes we don't even it doesn't even go to the public. And what I mean by that is if I only have a barrel of Viognier, it's going to go to the wine club first. Mm-hmm. You may never be, as a public, you won't ever get to taste it. But we do have bigger ones like the Confluence. We try to make a lot of that. The Grenache Rosé, we try to make a lot of that because we have more vineyards around the Verde Valley,
Okay.
not just here.
Uh-huh.
So it was their vision, the original owner's vision, and now 4 seasons ago, 4 crushes or 4 harvests ago, they hired me. New owners hired me
Okay.
to take over and run and own the property. So that's where I'm at.
Okay.
This is my 11th year of making wine.
Really? So were you in Arizona making wine beforehand?
Yeah.
Okay. Where were you?
Here in the Verde Valley. I was over in the Page Springs area.
Okay.
Yeah. That's where I kind of cut my teeth after
Sure.
retiring.
After retiring, yeah. So have you been doing agriculture for all of your life, or is this a recent development, or at least
That's recent.
relatively recent?
Well, I mean, like your family, there was some stuff down in Phoenix, being a native of Phoenix.
Okay.
A couple generations, watched it grow up, and it was all agricultural down there.
Mm-hmm.
So learning grapes and how they are grown, the viticultural side, I just learned going out in the field, learning from people. We do have the Southwest Wine Center, which is around here.
Which is at the Yavapai College, correct?
It's Yavapai College, yep. And that's where you get to learn both the enology, which is the winemaking side, and the viticulture side, which is the farming side. So, and then you have the internet. The internet is not what it was when I was a kid. There was no internet when I was a kid.
Sure.
I mean, I started developing stuff in 83.
Wow.
Selling dial-up and getting in line through the high school and all this kind of stuff. So you can read, back to the internet and how that all works is you can look at a vine, you can get onto the internet, you can learn. In the University of California, Davis, there's got a lot of articles. Being part of the enology and viticulture community, there's a lot of articles from all over the world published all the time. So, you get to learn a lot.
Mm-hmm. Would you say that learning about farming and agriculture is like an intrinsically slow process? Because I think about grapes, for example. They only pop up once a year. Seems like you have significantly less opportunities to learn about the crop you're working with. That's exactly right. You get one chance at growing them, and you have one chance of making wine. It's not like the beer industry where you order barley, you order corn, whatever your mash, whatever your primary fermentation is and such. And if it goes bad, you throw it away. We have one chance. You can't mess it up. If you do, you lose lots of money. It takes a while because year to year to year. So there's no, figuring this out in 1 or 2 or 5 years. Sure.
This is a lifetime. This is 10, 15, 20 years.
Well, and on top of that, it never ceases to amaze me how wine blends agriculture and wine making, or the production of an alcoholic beverage, in a way that really no other alcoholic beverage does. I mean, if you look at mead, some meaderies have beekeepers as part of their operation. But I mean, the scale that this is operating at, breweries aren't making their own or growing their own barley and then malting it and doing all that, whereas you guys have to handle everything from pruning to, keeping your barrels up and working, if you will. Yeah,
you're right. Exactly right. Wine's made in the field. So what we do out there really shapes it going into the cellar. If it's not good coming into the cellar, then I have to work my magic. I got to do what I can. But who wants something that's modified and added to? And we're always looking for less additives in our food.
You mentioned you worked in production. It's like shoot it right in camera, record it right with your recorder.
Oh, sure.
Because it always gets degraded when you try and fix it after the fact.
Oh, yeah. You got a lot of cuts and a lot of angles.
Exactly.
All that kind of stuff. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So how did you get into winemaking then?
So I retired. I stopped working. I sold my internet and computer business. I think we had talked about that a little earlier. Mm-hmm. Went through ASU, got into the computer science, and figured out that there was something there. And we started building websites and hosting and all that kind of stuff.
Nice.
And then had a lot of different opportunities in that, and went to work for a tasting room. I was like, I need some social. I need to go look at some things. And I worked just like the guys are doing here. So I've done everything when it comes to wineries, not just making the wine or managing the vineyards, but I've bussed dishes. I've taken out the garbage. I've worked with customers. I ran a wine club. I developed, with my development stuff, I developed a POS system where we could take orders and we could track bottle counts and run wine club and all that kind of stuff. So I've seen it all. I've done it all. And one thing led to another. Harvest came around a few months later, and I was like, I want to learn. So I keep pointing over this direction because the winery, the processing center is over here. And I just learned it. I learned from other people's mistakes, and that's what a lot of people need to do. Mm-hmm. They don't always see that. I've learned from the book. I've learned by doing it. When you have to push around a pallet jack with 3,000 pounds of wine barrels, you go slow. You don't cut corners, and those kind of things.
Absolutely.
I learned in the cellar, and that's kind of how I got into it. Now I applied myself. Mm-hmm. I tell my kids, I said, if you apply yourself, they'll put you in charge. Well, now I'm in charge.
Did you just kind of happen to end up in the position where you've been put in such a important role? Did you force yourself in?
No.
Did it ease in? How did it work?
I just knew it all.
And people
I just knew it all. So they needed a winemaker because they're buying the property. So I said, I can take this over. I know a little bit about the operation, having worked in the area, and then jumped in. I mean, you know it, and you're always learning. But no, I mean, I've managed my own businesses. This is a business. You've got to manage it.
Sure.
You just apply that principle at whatever level it is. If it's one employee or two or five, heck, we got 15 different people, 15 different servers. I mean, and that doesn't include the 4 people in the vineyard. Chris Whitehorn and I are in the cellar making wine. I've got so many different projects. We got the kayaks and we've got the horses, and you just do it. If you make a mistake, you make a mistake and try not to lose too much money.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Especially
reduce your risk.
Easy to do when you're growing as much fruit as you guys are, and it's so at will to the elements. So circling back to the property a little bit, we kind of went through the entire area, but there's so much to talk about. So, when you come in, you've got these beautiful trees, you've got the vineyards on both sides. Talk to me a little bit about the building that you pull up and see when you come here.
So when you come over the hill, you're going to see these Italian cypress, and that's kind of lending to the Tuscan theme.
Yeah, absolutely.
The house has got a Tuscan theme. We have a wedding chapel that's Tuscan theme. So, if you're looking to get married, that's what that's all about, is driving revenue from everything. Mm-hmm. If you just have a winery, you're not going to make money. You need food. You need another revenue source. You need the chapel. But when you come into the property, they built this house for the winemaker and the vineyard manager. That person would stay here on property all the time and watch it and make the wine. And then the idea was they were going to move behind me to the east and build a tasting room and a restaurant. Well, they couldn't because wineries don't make money. They couldn't get all the revenue sources. Well, then kayaking come in, we get a few extra dollars there. Let's get some horses. Let's do the romantic vineyard ride.
Sure.
There's more revenue coming in there. So what we get is the 87 acres. Like I said, the north half is already kind of been developed. That's under our farm winery license. That kind of stays where it is. And to the south side of the property, you'll see at our entrance gate, that's going to be developed into a small hotel, some casitas,
really?
A restaurant, and a tasting room. So the public will kind of run in there. You could stay the night. Just come up to taste for the afternoon.
Sure.
Or hang out and listen to live music. By the way, we have live music every day.
Really? Okay.
I mean, every day. And then you'll be able to go in there and stay an extra night or two. And versus finding a hotel in Sedona or finding a hotel room in Cottonwood. And then you'll be able to come down here for the afternoon. The next day you might go for a kayak and a massage or horseback ride on the third day.
That sounds like a perfect trip.
We're the anomaly when it comes to the wine industry model in Arizona. We're not. A lot of wineries are. They might be a vineyard. Most of them are just wineries, so they're buying grapes from somewhere else, but they don't have all these amenities. Some people have lawns. Some people, we even have a hay ride.
Really? Wow.
We built a hay wagon out of an old pickup truck.
Wow.
Through some, and we drive around the property. I mean, nobody else does that, but they don't have this many acres.
Yeah, that's I haven't been to too many of the Arizona wineries, but this is probably the biggest I've been to in terms of footprint.
Yeah.
And it's like sweeping too.
Yeah.
A lot of different
great views.
Vineyards will have separate vineyards that aren't all connected,
right?
Or are this large if they are connected. This is just an incredible property because of all those components coming together, like you said.
Yeah.
And if you're looking for like a trip to do in Arizona and feel like you're in another state or another country, this is like the perfect spot to do it, especially if you like wine.
It's a total escape.
And isn't there a wine tour that goes along the Verde River as well? Like people kayak down the Verde River and do the wine tour. Is that a thing?
Well, there's some locals who own kayaks and then jump in and go, but we're the only winery on the river.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, up Oak Creek,
Mm-hmm.
There's Page Springs, there's Oak Creek Winery, there's Javelina Lee,
Mm-hmm.
there's DA Ranch, but you don't go down that creek. It's not navigable.
Sure.
You got to get out and port your boat or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The Verde runs wide enough and deep enough where year round you can jump in a kayak and come down.
So you're a native of Arizona. Have you lived elsewhere and experienced anything like this in your life before?
Not vineyards, not this vineyard winery.
Mm-hmm.
I raised my kids in Telluride, Colorado, so I've seen majestic, just overwhelming mountains, beautiful sunsets, snow, different seasons,
Mm-hmm.
the music scene there. But no, I mean this area is much different. It's in close proximity to Sedona, so you get the red rocks. You get all the people who travel from all over the world to see the Grand Canyon,
Absolutely.
Sedona, Scottsdale, that whole driving trip thing, and they find us. We get a lot of international visitors.
And not that it makes a huge difference, but if you're looking to make a trip up north, Sedona, if you're not going to be hiking, I would almost say just come here because you can do all the other activities that you might even do in Sedona. You can even do some hiking down here, but it's also 30 minutes closer than Sedona is, which is nice because if you're doing a little day trip, saving that extra hour makes a big difference.
Well, one of the other things I did, and there is so many, but you said, instead of going to Sedona, a lot of people do jeeping in Sedona, which is really beautiful, very beautiful. One of the owners here also owns a Jeep company there.
Okay.
He grabbed 4 Jeeps and he brought them out here. So you actually get to tour the property in a Jeep and cross the river in the Jeep. So because we own property over there, that's another thing you get to do here. So like you said, it is a day. It can be a day trip. We just won Best Day Trip. Another magazine voted their readers.
Okay.
Voted us best day trip in Arizona.
Wow.
And so that's quite an honor. You're right. There's a lot. You could be here. You could be here for 3 straight days.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it. So bringing it back to the wine, because that's, kind of what brought us here, among other things. I guess it isn't even the primary thing that brought us here, because I said the kayaking did.
Yeah.
But you mentioned 16 varietals, I think you said, are on this property?
16 varietals on this property. We work with 23 total because we have a vineyard out that direction towards Cottonwood. I have a vineyard in the village of Oak Creek, and I have 2 other vineyards in Cornville. So I've managed 5 vineyards in the Verde Valley, Verde Valley AVA.
How do you even do that?
Well, I haven't had a day off in 4 years. It's a lifestyle.
Uh-huh.
With farming.
Sure.
I'm trying to think, though, who is it? Willie Nelson said, mothers, take your kids to a farm so they know food doesn't come in a box.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It's farming. You can't leave. You don't leave.
Well, and to be able to create enough wine, like you said, you have so much property that, it looks like this would make endless wine to someone who has no idea how little of a yield comes off of so much land when making wine.
Yeah, we want low yields. We don't want high yields. You don't want a lot of grapes coming off. You want a small amount of grapes coming off the vine, because if you have a lot, then the plant's energy is put all of that into a lot of grapes. Wouldn't you like to take all of that energy, put it into a few grapes? You're going to get a better wine.
Mm-hmm.
Thus, wine's made in the
Concentrating
field.
the flavor and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what kind of not paraphrasing, but what I talked about, the Willie Nelson song, the quote, "Hey, take your kids."
Mm-hmm.
I have this thing where I say, "Hey, kids, take your moms to a vineyard and a winery," so they know wine doesn't come in a box.
Oh, okay. I like it.
My thing is, this wine doesn't grow on a shelf,
Mm-hmm.
even though it's there in your grocery store every day and it's always the same. That's fine. This isn't. This is made by hand. We just crushed 80 tons of grapes.
Wow.
Which will make about 60,000 bottles. And we hand crush it and destem it. We hand label. We hand cork. We hand foil. Well, actually, we got rid of the foils. As you guys can see, we're topless. We no more foil anymore. Yep. It's not in a cellar. We don't need that. So that waste has kind of gone away. But we want you to come and judge us. Judge me, judge Chris, us making the wine. You don't hear that from a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Judge me. When do you see that? We're on Facebook or on Instagram. We're like, hey, look at me. But
sure.
No, really. If you like the wine, you drink it. If you don't like the wine, don't drink it. Find something else. But remember, this is handcrafted wine. So
if you don't mind, I'm going to pour some of this white here. But while I'm doing that, if you could kind of describe your guys' winemaking philosophy. What kind of wine do you guys like to make?
Sure. Let's go with some of the varietals we have on the property. We have Marsanne, Roussanne, we have Malbec, Petit Syrah, Sauvignon Blanc. We have Charbonneau, which is Bernarda, if you go to other parts of the world. We have Merlot, which is fantastic. We have Syrah. We have Petit Verdot. We have Sangiovese. So if you've ever been to Italy and the Chianti, you're going to find that primarily Sangiovese is in that. So we do a lot. We don't, and then we do blends. This here is Grenache. We don't grow Grenache on this property. We have Grenache on a different property. But this is
one of your properties.
We don't have any Grenache in any one of our 5 vineyards.
Okay.
We actually buy grapes from Wilcox, which is the Wilcox AVA. So we do buy some others.
Wilcox produces the most grapes of any of the AVAs, correct?
They do.
Okay.
Yep. Land's a little cheaper down there, and land is it's a little flatter. It's easier to develop. As you can kind of see around this property, we have a lot of hills. Well, I can't run a tractor up and down there. So back to made by hand. Just on this property with the vines we have, we make over 800,000 prunings, cuts.
Wow.
800,000, and we're small.
And what exactly does that mean?
So you see the property, you see the grapes, you see the growth every year. We cut the canes back to its cordon level, which is this T. So we give them a haircut. We cut that back so it will regrow. So the vine goes dormant now.
Okay.
The leaves are going away. It's fall, and that's what's happening. So in the spring or February, winter, we actually trim them back, and that then wakes up the vine, and it gets rid of all the older growth, because we want fresh. We want to say, oh well, we're not trying to kill the vine, but we're trying to say, hey, work for us. Don't just sit on the couch and collect a paycheck. Not a paycheck, but go for this. So when you trim it and you cut it back, it's like a bush. It's going to grow. It's going to grow. It's going to grow. So it's going to produce that great wine.
So if you didn't cut it, would it still fruit, but just not at the level that it does?
Yeah, and quality.
Okay, Interesting. Yeah, because that's one of the craziest things. Is I have some plants in my backyard, and I'll be watering them for months, and then all of a sudden they'll get spider mites or something like that. And I'm so frustrated because I'm like, oh my God, I put all that work in and it's gone now. And we spoke about this a little bit earlier, but the level of knowledge that has been developed over hundreds of years, and I love the Verde Valley because it is a great example of kind of that knowledge and expertise being distilled, if you will, into an area that is not really recognized for having that knowledge. Now they are with the new designation, but the amount of people in Arizona that don't even realize is incredible.
A lot.
I wouldn't know
Most
if I wasn't in the business.
Yeah.
So
Most people don't know because they know Bordeaux, they know Champagne, France, they know Napa, they Argentina, they know Portugal, because that's, for 10,000 years or 5,000 years, however long wine it's kind of commercially been produced, which is mostly for kings and queens and popes and, so forth. People don't know that. It's the Old West. I I grew up carrying a gun and cowboy boots, and nobody thinks about that. They think desert, they think cactus, they think dry. Well, you put all that together, that's good soil. And we've got a bunch of different soils here that make good grapes for winemaking. Lime and clay and some alluvial. We got sand. We got basalt, which is a volcanic Black Hills volcano here. So you get the minerality to some wine. So it's just it's a great place to grow.
What would it be? Is it geographic, if it's the soil and whatnot? That's the correct word, right?
Sure.
So you were mentioning some of those components that make Arizona, and this region in particular, a great region to grow in. And you mentioned like the volcanic soil. What about that is so beneficial to growing grapes?
So terroir is what the ground is. That's kind of a loose interpretation, French, of what's in the ground and then what's above the ground in farming. So where you're from is who you are. You could be from the Northeast, you could be from the Northwest, you could be from a totally different country. You could have had parents or no parents. You could have had religion or no religion. You could have had a bigger brother, older brother to beat you up every day, or not. You got a younger sister that was off. Everything was great. That's your soil. That's your terroir. So if I have a Merlot and it's grown in sandy or silt, it's going to taste different than clay. Your sandy and silt's going to taste kind of rocky or cement-like, minerally. Your clay is not. Your clay is, you think about the South, where you've got the red clay soils in your Iowa or Ohio soils where you're growing food. It's going to be richer and earthier. Okay, so if you've ever been on a job site, construction site, and you smelled freshly poured concrete, that minerality. So think about Perrier and Calistoga and Fiji water. That's what we have underneath here. It flows through our property at 600 plus feet is where our well is.
Wow.
It's between 3 and 4 million years old. It has fallen on Flagstaff or the Mogollon Rim. It has seeped down through the earth and has picked up all of that volcanic minerality, because if you go look at the peaks up there, they're volcanic. And then it leaks out at our level, which Sedona's lower. That's what you get when we water here. So you get some minerality. We also get limestone. If you ever taste kind of a chalky to this. So we have that. That's kind of what our Viognier up here and our Sauvignon Blanc is like. It's kind of chalky. The Syrah, if you taste our Syrah versus a Wilcox Syrah, ours is much, theirs is earthier, or not dirtier, but earthier. Ours tastes more like clay. If you've ever worked with clay in a studio, making a pot of actual red clay, that's what you get over here. And so terroir has a lot to do with it. You said, geographic. We have a couple hundred square miles here of the Verde Valley AVA, and wherever you plant it, you can see kind of the background. You can see the clay and the limestone, and you can see the sand in those layers, and that's who you are. As a grapevine grows, it grows down. So when you're 5 years old, you taste like this. When you're 10 years old, you taste like the 10 years of your life, right? All those experiences. The taproot keeps going down, and now you're 15 years old. Now you've got more and more and more. So as this vineyard grows in 20 or 30 or 50 years, it's going to taste like all of those layers. So you're going to go, oh, I remember. And that's what we talk about wine. Like, oh my gosh, I remember that was a great year. Well, that was in the first 5 years, and we could have had crazy rain or no rain. That's what's fun about talking about wine. And then, let's say you're 80 years old and you got to grow up with that vineyard. Well, you get to talk about the 20-year-old wine, the 40-year-old wine, and that's cool. That's what wine's all about.
So with the beer making process, different regions around the world have different water profiles that affect their beers.
They totally
right?
do.
And so whether they get their malt from one part of the world or another part of the world, or their hops from one place or another, the water, since they're putting that water into the production of their beer, has a distinct effect. But like, you're not putting water into the production of this wine.
No.
So this has Wilcox water and those types of effects in it then, right?
Their terroir, their soils, their water, what the grape actually brings in. When you look at the label on a wine, a bottle, it'll tell you, let's say it's 15% wine or alcohol. 15 minus 100 is 85. Well, the rest of it's water. You do have your minerals, you do have your resveratrol. You have all of these different minerals and other things. That's what was in the grape, and that when you eat a table grape, that's what you get. All comes from the grape. So our water is what kind of filters down, and the vine picks up. The profile in the beer is mostly water.
Sure.
And you're flavoring it with all those other, the corn and the barley and hops. Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's interesting too, because when you see a bottle of wine next to a bottle of beer on a shelf, you just assume that the process is so similar. And if you throw a bottle of alcohol next to it, it's all alcohol, right?
Yep.
Well, it's crazy. If you are kind of nerdy about these things, how many different components you can latch onto and that will tell the story in the terroir of whatever you're drinking, be it beer, wine, or spirits.
Yeah. You look at the big beer companies, and do they farm? Now they have become farmers. They may not own all of the land, but they have a contract with that farmer, and he does it the same way for 25 years or 50 years, and that's what they need. That's the profile of the beer. Ours changes. When you go to the grocery store and you grab that bottle of wine, it's always yours, right?
Yep.
That's what I like. I like the label, the way it tastes, and all of a sudden it's gone. Well, that's what happens with ours. When it's gone, you got to go to the right or go to the left, and you're like, oh my gosh, which one am I going to choose? Most people go with visual. They go, oh, I like this label better. And if they like it, they like it. And all of a sudden they lose that. The company who produced that bottle loses a customer. Well, that's the last thing you want to do as a business owner is, now I got to go market more. So when you get, your grocery store wines, you just be careful. If it tastes the same all the time, it's not just grape.
Sure.
There are additives in there, so forth. One of the things that a lot of people do not realize, and I talk about this on my tour when I do private tours here, is that the beer industry will put in peaches, or they'll put in chocolate, or they'll put in some hops, to flavor. The beer industry does that. That's how they get the taste,
and they can really guide the direction of what they want it to taste like.
Absolutely. We can't. We very much. The grape profile, the varietal, has a certain profile. We can only change much, and that's the soil. Maybe the yeast we throw at it, we might be able to mute cherry or enhance some cherry, and there's no cherry in it, but the notes.
Sure.
People always forget that. It's like, well, what kind of cherries do you put in here? No. That's if you really close your eyes and you really focus. That's what you're going to get. You're going to taste that cherry, like in a
and a lot of people, there's somewhat of a pretentious side of it, right? Of people saying they taste things that probably don't taste, maybe, and there's somewhat of a creative side of it, right? Of just kind of trying to imagine things that are in the similar realm. People will say butterscotch. Maybe it doesn't actually taste like butterscotch, but there's something that's pushing it in that direction. But when you look at like hops, for example, if people say, it's fruity in this way or fruity in that way, people don't really balk at it, because a lot of the terpenes, for example, that are going to make those plants taste a certain way are actually present in the hops that affect it. Wine, I don't know to what degree, certain terpenes are overlapping with other fruits and whatnot. But yeah, that's a very interesting way that I've not thought about wine before, is the limited impact that a winemaker can have in the ending result. What are some of the levers you can turn, if you will?
Well, kind of just the canopy management, how it ripens. So if the fruit ripens consistently, that'd be fantastic. But it doesn't. It goes up and then it plateaus. It might even drop in bricks. Bricks is a sugar term.
And you're just pulling grapes off and testing them for what their bricks are? Okay.
That's how we know when to harvest. Yep. So it's really canopy management. And then the press, how much do we want to press it? Can you get blood out of a turnip? Sure, you can get blood out of a turnip. But who wants that? We'd rather get the fruity part of the vegetable, the herbaceous of the turnip. We don't want more. We don't want the skin. We don't want to, get your shirt wet and then wring it out. We don't. That's too much. That's the tannins. You don't want to squeeze that grape too much. Have you ever seen somebody pick up a grape, peel the grape, and just eat the skin? No, it doesn't happen. Did you know that in other countries, they'll eat the banana peel?
Really?
Tell that to an American, and they're like, "What? What are you talking about?" No. Well, it's actually really good for you, but it's too tannic. So people like tannic? Nope. They go to sweet. They love sweet. So that's the next thing. Then when we get into the cellar, the yeast. I can, profiles. Do I want a really fruity? This yeast might bring up the fruity part of it. Can it enhance, like you said, the butterscotch or the cherry or the blackberry notes? Okay, we have yeast that can enhance the blue fruit, you say, which is kind of a thing, like blueberry. Then we have wood. So whiskey, let's say, whiskey or barrel-aged beer. It tastes different than stainless. Well, let's say I have 2 French forests, 2 American forests, and a Hungarian forest. Let's take the 2 French forests. Those trees taste different.
Really?
People don't even know that.
Uh-huh.
Well, what if I have a really tannic tree and a kind of more sweetwood tree? Well, the wine's going to go that direction because we're talking about what levers can you pull.
Mm-hmm.
And then really it's aging. How much aging, how much microoxidation do you want in your wine? Do you want it really, really fruity, young? A lot of people don't like that young nouveau wine. It's not very round. But we do a nouveau, which is released in November, and there's no wood on it. Well, there's that's different. It's all fruit, and some people don't like that. Mm-hmm. Give it a chance. Give everything a chance. And,
so do you do everything in terms of fermenting in barrels and stainless?
We can do all of that. We can barrel ferment. That gives a wine a different taste, or we can age in wood. We can go stainless. We do some whites in wood. There's just a lot of combinations. We actually now have gotten into concrete. So we have 8 casks over there, which are 240 gallons each. So I talked about concrete a little earlier. You get the minerality. Mm-hmm. Well, our Sauvignon Blanc is in kind of some limestones. You get some chalky, and you get the minerality there. Now we add a little bit more minerality with it. We sold 120 cases in a month.
Really?
It was like gone. I'm like, I don't even think I got a couple bottles of that. Me.
And so was that decision just...
That's concrete. That's the lever.
Is that something that you knew you wanted to amp up the minerality?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Because, it's interesting because, I asked, do you ferment everything in stainless and barrels? But I wasn't even differentiating in my head the difference between fermenting in barrels and just aging in barrels.
Yep.
And that alone is a tremendous difference. Could you speak to what the difference is between those two and how it might affect a wine that you're producing?
Wood adds wood. If I do it instead, yeah. If it's in stainless, a lot of people like a crisp Chardonnay, and there's some people who like this buttery Chardonnay. So if I want to add wood to a Chardonnay, it's going to round it out versus a bright, crisp, fruity Chardonnay. If I put it into wood, it's not going to be bright and fruity. Mm-hmm. There's going to be wood to it, so it's going to kind of mute that fruit. If I leave it in a stainless tank, that's where a lot of people in Arizona make Chardonnay. They don't like that woodiness. And then they have this buttery, which they throw in malolactic bacteria, which then converts it from a lactic acid to a malic acid, which is a little softer, more refined. Well, a lot of Arizona wineries that have Chardonnay don't do that. They want just crisp. It tastes like the fruit. It tastes like the terroir. It's what it is. You go to certain parts of the world, they change all of that. So they barrel ferment that, and they make it a little more round. And it hides the fruit, and it's not crisp.
Sure.
It's kind of dulled down, which some people like. You drink what you like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's why, when you first start drinking wine, it's easy to say, okay, I like Cab, and that's the grape I'm going to drink.
Right.
But I've had Cabs that taste like other grapes and other grapes that have tasted like Cab, at least to me personally, not being an expert or a sommelier or anything like that. But that's one of the reasons why I love doing like a tasting of, all the different wines that a place has to offer, because being able to bounce between them, that's how you really develop a palate. And that's how you really recognize the minerality versus, woody or fruity and all those different components and how they harmonize as well.
Yeah. A cab is not a cab, it's not a cab, it's not a cab. You speak of the Cabernet Sauvignon. We also have a Cabernet Franc, which some people don't know about. There's thousands of varieties that you can choose from to make wine. So you're looking for the certain profile, but we have 5 different cabs. I have 5 different vineyards that have produced cab. Do I throw it all together? No. Why would I do that? Wouldn't it be cool to meet somebody from Chicago or New York or Miami or Denver or Seattle, right? They're different people. They bring things to the relationship. So why not show our customers, our wine club, all the different soils? You're like, oh my gosh, that one in the village, I love it. The one down in Wilcox, I love it. The one in Alcantara, I love it. The one over there, it's not my taste. It's not my style.
Yeah.
Well, that's what's cool. So you get a lot of people that when they blend, you don't just blend varietals to make like we did with the confluence. That's a traditional Grenache Syrah Mourvedre blend, which you find in Rhone, which is south of France, which is what they do. But you can present Grenache by itself, but it's fun to taste Grenache from all the different vineyards and be judgy.
Well, and if you don't do that, how will you truly know what the different components are bringing to the table?
Right. I make them all separate. Sometimes we will blend 2 cabs together and make it better. I always say better. It's your call. Sure. Do we have magazines like what you have, and do those magazines rate them? Sure. Most of the time that those judges are looking for the structure of the wine. They're not saying it's better than this one, because the judge might go home and drink his favorite wine, which he thinks is better, even though he gave a wine a 99 or 100. But we got to have some kind of baselines. Let's go back to drink what you like. We love blending stuff here, but we have a lot of single varietals. That's why we have a lot of members. Yeah.
I think that's an exciting way to taste wine, because you get those little, like, you can do more palate building, if you will, when you have the separate wines together. When it comes to blending, though, whether it be you guys or, wineries in general, are you making the wines on their own and then blending them, or are you mixing all the grapes together before the fermentation begins?
No, we really don't do field blends here where you pick, let's say, Merlot and Syrah together and put them in the same fermentation and so forth. We like to make it by itself, just that varietal, because who knows? It could be the best you've ever made.
Sure.
If it's the worst you ever made, you're like, well, what are we going to do with this?
Sure.
You can't just release it as it is. So we try to flavor it by using traditional blend grapes, blended grapes. And
which Cabernet Franc is one of those, right? That's traditionally blended?
Cabernet Franc is drank by itself, but it's blended. Yep. It gives some meat to it, some tannins to the wine, gets some color to the wine. Petite Syrah does that. One thing we do here is we haven't released until this year, will release a Charbono and a Malbec blend. And those 2 grapes are grown separate here, made separate, then we blend it to what we make as a blend. But you find that in Argentina, and they love to do that. They love to put those 2 together. And so what we've done with our wine club is we make them separate, and here's the 2 bottles. Buy them, you go home, and you play with it. Get all your glasses out and go, okay, 90%, 10%, 80-20, 70-30, 60-40. And the wine club members come back, and they're just like, oh my gosh, the 60-40 is the best. And then the other one's like, 70-30 is best. No, the 90-10 is the best. And you're like, isn't this fun? There's
You could have your own winemaker in the making competition where everyone
Yeah.
creates their own blends and whoever wins gets
Yep.
a case or whatever. That sounds like a fun competition that I would love to
That's
be a
fun.
part of.
So find single varietal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so is there like a signature grape that maybe it's the most you grow, which makes it your signature, or is there a grape from your guys' properties that you think particularly shines? Or is that just a ridiculous question to ask? It's like picking one of your 16 kids.
Yeah, you can't have just one girlfriend. Just no. There's not just one. It's back to you drink what you like.
Mm-hmm.
What is very popular here is our Viognier and our Sauvignon Blanc. Those are two whites. Those are grown on the hill over here. The Cabernet Sauvignon and the Merlot, Petit Syrah, Malbec, Charbonneau are fantastic. The Syrah, when we get enough to share, it always ranks kind of high among our members. So that's kind of what I'm going to give you this.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what the members come for, those varietals.
What about you? What do
Yeah.
you like to drink?
Alcohol.
So are you a big beer guy as well?
I drink it all.
Yeah.
Well, there's an industry saying it takes a lot of beer to make wine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I drink whatever I'm in the mood for. My girlfriend really finds out that she notices that whatever's on TV, it just jumps into
That's
my
what
mouth.
you
And
want?
like if they're pouring scotch, in some whatever lawyer show, and they're just pouring it, I'm like, and I
You're
go to-
shamelessly
and I go,
easy to market to.
oh, totally. And I just, go to the cabinet and pour whatever.
Nice.
I like French wines and California wines and Italian wines. I like Arizona wines. I've got some, favorite winemakers here in Arizona.
Would you be willing to
I
share
would
some
be-
names that you like here in Arizona?
No, I'd be no, we're all friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they are up here in the north and they're down south.
Uh-huh.
And then it goes back to, hey, they always make the Sauvignon Blanc, but good. And then like last year, ours was just fantastic. So, you just got to keep drinking.
Go with the flow.
Yeah, you
Yep.
got to keep trying. You go out to the wineries and check them out, and go if you can get to the winemaker, talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
We try to talk to our staff, and we do monthly drinking. We say we bring in wines from all over the world, and we show them ours, and we taste, and we talk about it, so they know what's going on in the cellar. They've been helping me in the cellar.
Mm-hmm.
We had a couple that we actually brought down, and they actually stomped on grapes. I'm like, hey girls, we got 400 pounds here. We put them in a tub. Get in there, and they kicked their shoes off. We
Yeah.
sterilized them. They pulled up their jeans, and they jumped in and they stomped. So they know what's going on.
How long does it take to stomp that many grapes?
Correctly? 20 minutes.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. It's exhausting.
Uh-huh.
And it's like running a 10K.
Really?
You got to get your heel in there. You got to get your toe in there, and it just doesn't they don't just fall apart, and then it slides, and you got to hold on, and yeah, it's exhausting.
There's a technique to everything, right? But I
There
don't know
is.
why it's so funny to me. Imagining like you in there just like curling your toes and doing everything
what
you
you
can to
do.
get them all crushed in the right way. That's too funny.
Heel, toe, your old side, and you got to push them, and then you got to move.
Is
them
that how
out
you
of the
crush
way.
all of your grapes?
No,
No?
no,
Okay.
that's 80 tons.
Uh-huh.
No. When we were doing around 60 tons, we had done some math. By the time we get done moving or crushing 60 tons, by the time it gets to this glass, we've moved 10 million pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, wine doesn't grow on shelves.
Uh-huh.
We'll do small, 200, 300, 400, 500 pounds at a time. We'll get a member or two or some staff, and we'll come down and do it. I'll do it, and I do it. It just goes back to the beginning. It's like that's what your grandparents, your
Sure.
great grandparents did, because they had a few vines in the back. But we probably no more than 1,000 pounds. Will we tread out? Is kind of what we're doing.
Why do you do that then? Is it just
Why do we
kinda-
tread? Why
Yeah.
do we literally stomp the grapes?
Yeah.
It just puts you back. You're just like, okay, well, this is when it becomes so commercial, and even though it's done by hand, it's like you do the same thing over day. It's like clean. Grapes coming in, grapes going out. We're racking, we're pressing. We're destemming. It's nonstop. After once in a while, you're like, I need a break, and that's what it is. You jump in the tub and you just, okay, this is what's going on, and this is,
So it's not so much like
feeling.
commercially necessary as it is like taking yourself out of the motions, kind of. I don't like the word symbolic in this instance, but there is some sort of symbolism. It sounds
absolutely.
Like. Yeah.
That's what they used to do. I mean, the wine was made in concrete before. They would just pour these concrete pools that are a couple inches, a couple feet thick, and that's where all the grapes went. They just dumped them in there, and these girls, they would hike up their long skirts, and they would just stomp all day. And then eventually, it fermented on its own. They didn't even use yeast. I mean, you don't need to use it.
Yeah, open fermentation.
We're actually pulled 4 strains from this property. Hopefully, we get to know commercial yeast. So you're going to have an organic farm, pruned by hand, cut by hand, dropped by hand, harvested by hand, and you're going to get all the yeast that come from this property. Well,
and that's terroir on another level too.
Absolutely.
So, what does it look like moving 80 tons of grapes? How do you harvest a property like this?
It takes 135 straight days. We don't leave. We actually hand punch. So instead of stomping, we actually push down a punch down tool into these ton bends. Think about it. If you've ever been to the gym, have you ever pushed 40,000 pounds around at once? No. Most people
go to the
never.
beach and try and do that too. That's basically what it sounds like.
Yeah. We don't leave. What is it like? It's just constant. It's shuffling. It's Tetris. You're just, constantly moving stuff. We don't have enough space here. So there's something always in that footprint. And it's, yeah.
So like when you're going through the fields though, are you're plucking them off by hand and putting them in a big bin, or what is that like?
Yep. We judge it. The wine on the shelves in the grocery stores, there's a machine that picks everything. And that's what goes in there because it's fruit and it makes money and so forth. We find a bad bunch, we cut it and it drops to the ground. Find the good bunch, drops into our bin, and then we bring it in here.
And they ripen at different speeds and whatnot as well, right?
They do. Just like we ripen or we mature at different times, human beings, they do. So we're always out there testing the bricks levels. We're pulling samples. When we call a pick and we're trying to do that, we go out and we pick them, and then we bring them in, and then they go into the destemmer, or they go right into the press. If you're making a white, they go right into the press. If you're making a red, you want to destem it. Then it ferments. Reds ferment on the grape because that's the tannin and the color comes from the pigment. The skin of the grape. And that's why this rosé is very light. It's not super pink. It's not salmon. It's not orange, because very, very little skin contact time. And then once you do that, the fermentation takes a week or two. We hand punch that, and then once that's done, we then put it into a press. So it's shoveling, and that's how I got to that 10 million pounds 2 years later. Anybody that's waited for anything for 2 years? It takes
a
a
good
while.
Question. Yeah.
Beer can be turn and burn.
Sure.
Compared to our industry, you don't put a lot of beer in
want
barrels
beer
for
around
2 years.
For 2 years. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. While I sip the rest of this white here, and then I'll pour a glass of that. Talk to me a little bit about this wine here. You mentioned it a little bit earlier, but speak about it a little more if you could.
This wine right here is named after the confluence, so the joining. You look at your glass, hold your glass up. Off to the left is the Verde River, and off to the right is the Oak Creek. So we are at the confluence.
How far is that from like where we are sitting right now?
400 yards.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So we have a wedding chapel. We'll make a plug. It's a wedding chapel. You get married here. We have a lot of proposals. We have 2 weddings this weekend.
Wow.
It's actually facing the confluence.
Really?
So as 2 life forces come together, 2 families come together.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Right? How
that's
cheesy
beautiful.
is that? That's just
it's awesome.
Walt Disney, right? It's just like, but that's why we did it. It's pointed in that direction, and it's just cool. So that's what this is. It's named the confluence after the confluence here. It's a Grenache, Syrah, and Mourvedre. This year happens to be 40%, 40%, and 20%. 20% being the Mourvedre. It's a traditional blend you find in the south of France. It's got great characteristics. It's very fruit forward. It's balanced with wood. It's not super tannic.
So when people say a Rhone blend, this is a traditional Rhone blend, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll find these grapes in that area.
Okay.
The percentages depends on your area.
Sure.
In other parts of the world,
Wow.
they have domains of control. They have these rules that what you have is they can only do a certain thing a certain way and grow a certain grape and process it a certain way and age it a certain way. And so you know it's always the same. That's how they control that.
Mm-hmm. But that's not really what you guys are going
always
for.
No, we just like it because that blend here, those three varietals blended together, is a lighter wine. So if you hold it up, it's not super inky.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can it's translucent. You can see through it, but you can see the bright, the beautiful ruby color. And
I love when the sun
forth.
shines through a wine like this, and
Right?
you get that crazy. It almost looks like you can't see it on the
garnet.
camera because it's on the opposite side of my hand. But this is one of the most beautiful red colors I think I've ever seen before.
So that's what we do. We do a Grand Rouge, which is our other signature red, but it's a really heavy one, and that's a Bordeaux, traditional Bordeaux blend. Now, when I say Rhone and I say Bordeaux, these are not Bordeaux grapes.
Mm-hmm.
But like you can't call bubbly champagne.
Sure.
If it's not made in Champagne, you can't make it's not champagne.
So like
it's
Bordeaux is the region, right? But
Right.
there are specific grapes not called Bordeaux grown in Bordeaux, or is
No,
Bordeaux
no.
also referring to a grape?
Like Camp Verde, you can find in Bordeaux, but you don't have, and we can grow it here. You can grow wherever you want to, but they just happen to grow that there, and that's what the blend is. That's in the Grand Rouge. That's okay. That's what they blend there. We're going to try to do the same thing, and that's much heavier. Almost not. You can't see through it. So there's a few of our signature wines that we do, and that's when we say Bordeaux blend. Well, most people kind of understand that.
Yeah. So, are there any special wines that you have on the way, whether it be for wine club members that you can discuss and maybe entice some new wine club members, or ones that you haven't done before, or things like that you guys have that'll release sometime in the coming months?
We have an orange muscat. Muscat Alexander is a grape. There's many different clones of it. You'll find it as a Moscato. Well, a lot of people say Moscato. Oh, it's Moscato and sweet. And, I like sweet wine. Well, it doesn't have to be made sweet. Muscat or Moscato can be dry.
Which is a result of the fermentation, right?
Yeah, we can stop fermentation or we can back sweeten the wine. So we do some sweet wines here because we've got those clients that come in. But we have orange muscat here, and it's called orange muscat because it's a muscat, but it's got notes of orange blossom. So when you drink it, you're like, wow, it's like I'm walking through an orchard. It's really cool.
Wow.
Until you smell it. Anyways, we laid that down. It's been in barrel for 2 years on a whiskey cask.
Really?
From down in Phoenix. We traded with Adventurous Stills.
Okay.
They emptied, we emptied. We took off and drove, and got them all switched out, and we have it's been sitting on that, so it's been charred. It's in a charred barrel, and it's got residual sugar, so it's kind of sweet. So it's a dessert wine, and it's going to be in a split.
Oh,
It's going to be a 375, little guy. And it's for sipping now. It's a sweet wine, and a lot of girls are like, "Wow, this is," and they just slow down. The sugar is going to get you in the morning, but. That's going to be an orange muscat's going to be a great dessert wine, and then we have this next year we're going to have a Malbec, just straight Malbec, not a rosé, nothing pressed off early, in concrete, so no wood. Well, a lot of people are used to that wood, but it's phenomenal. It'll be a mineral. It's grown back up over here. It's just going to be just off the charts, just fantastic. We also have Tannat. It's a grape. Tannat is very, very tannic, and it's where kind of the word root kind of comes from, the tannins. And that's going to be phenomenal. And then we're doing Semillon Blanc and Malvasia Bianca blend, which will give our Sauvignon. We'll make a Sauvignon Blanc by itself, but then it's going to give another wine, Sauvignon Blanc, with some floral notes to it. So that's a blend that people will look forward to. But year after year, our Petit Syrah, our Malbec, like I said, the Viognier, the Sauv Blanc, that's a reason to become a member. And the parties. Oh my gosh, we do parties here. Wow.
What is that like?
It's just a bunch of winos drinking and getting to know each other, and and I've got this, and come over to my house, and we'll try this, and and I got a 19 or an 18 or year, and you bring your 20, and we'll bring it. And
next morning you show up and
fun.
People are laying somewhere in the vineyard. You got to go pull them out, right? Not that crazy.
It's a little classier.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's fun. No, we have live music, free food. We do a spring and a fall party for our members. That's free parties, and we give them a bunch of tastings for free, and they get released for free or first. They're first in line to get the release. You got to just come out and check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I tried to capture the Tuscan vibe behind us here on camera. Sure. If you're listening, check it out on YouTube. But this place is absolutely beautiful, and it doesn't feel like Arizona. And I say that all the time. I should just start accepting that Arizona is the many shades that it is. But just from the road up there, when you come over the hill and see the vineyards sweeping across the landscape, and you see the trees as you're entering and whatnot, this is a very special property, and it's got an awesome vibe, and especially now that it's getting really nice out, it's a beautiful, beautiful day right now. Yep. I appreciate you so much for opening some wine and talking to us about it. Before we let you go, is there anything else you want to share with Taste of AZ listeners?
No, I look forward to getting into that magazine and reading and listening. Well,
and I look forward to poking around the property a little bit more and grabbing some photos, because the confluence just up the road and whatnot, it sounds like a view that is unmatched around here. So can't wait to go take a look. And once again, thank you so much for sitting down.
Oh, you're welcome.
Cheers.
I enjoyed it.
Awesome. I'm glad.